Dog K9 goes to say goodbye to his police owner, but notices something strange and stops the doctor. The fluorescent lights of the ICU at Atlanta Memorial Hospital cast harsh shadows over Sarah Collins' pale face as Max pressed her muzzle against the observation window. Something was wrong. The Belgian Malinois shepherd's amber eyes tracked, a low growl growing in his throat, which Officer Mike Rodriguez couldn't ignore. "Calm down, boy," Mike whispered, but Max's ears remained low, his body rigid with tension on the other side of the glass. Sarah lay motionless, surrounded by beeping monitors and hanging IV bags. Just 12 hours ago, they were working the normal shift at Atlanta's International Airport. Max's keen sense of smell guided them through the maze of terminals and security checkpoints. It was the smell that hit Max first, that strong chemical smell, always a bad sign. Sarah trusted her instincts as she had for 5 years. They tracked the suspect to Terminal C, where a drug trafficking operation was about to go badly wrong. Now Sarah was fighting for her life, and Max couldn't shake the feeling that the danger hadn't yet passed. Dr. Morrison adjusted something on Sarah's IV line and Max's growl got stronger. Mike gently pulled the leash, but the police dog refused to move. There was something familiar about the doctor's movements, something that activated a memory of the airport terminal, but Max couldn't make his human partner understand. "I know you're worried about her," Mike said, kneeling next to Max. "We all are, but Sarah is in good hands." The words meant nothing to Max. All he knew was that the same smell of the airport, chemical, dangerous, wrong, now permeated Dr. Morrison's lab coat. And every time the doctor entered Sarah's room, her vital signs mysteriously worsened. A young resident, Dr. Emily Chen, stopped by the nurses' station, attracted by Max's unusual behavior. She had previously worked with therapy dogs in the pediatric ward and knew that police dogs were different. His instincts were refined by years of training and experience. The way Max followed Dr. Morrison's movements wasn't anxiety or simple separation stress, it was something else. "Is he acting like this with the whole medical team?" she asked Mike, approaching cautiously. "No, ma'am. It started today and only with..." The shrill sound of Sarah's heart monitor cut Mike's sentence. Through the glass, they saw Dr. Morrison run to the edge of her bed, shouting orders as her vital signs collapsed. Max rushed forward, nearly knocking Mike down. Her bark echoed down the barren hallway, a sound Sarah would have recognized instantly. It wasn't the warning bark for drugs or explosives, it was a warning, the same one he'd given seconds before the airport shooting. Dr. Chen's eyes narrowed as she watched Dr. Morrison frantically fiddle with Sarah's medications. "Officer Rodriguez, how long have you known Dr. Morrison?" "Since Sarah was hospitalized last night." "Why?" "Because I've been working in this ICU for 3 years, she said slowly, "and I've never seen this man before today." Max's barking became even more intense when the fake doctor quickly looked through the observation window. For a moment, his eyes met Max's and something shone in them. Recognition, fear, hatred. Then he turned, moving fast and determined toward the service elevator at the end of the hallway. "Stop him!" Dr. Chen shouted. But Max was already in action. 5 years of training, countless hours of chase and apprehension, all leading up to this moment. The imposter had already hurt his partner once, he wouldn't have a second chance. The elevator doors were closing when Max let go of the leash. Mike's scream and Dr. Chen's gasp were left behind as he darted down the hallway, his claws clicking against the polished floor. He had only one chance to stop what his instincts had been warning him about all along. Sarah always said that Max was more than a police dog, he was her guardian angel. And when he launched himself through the shrinking crack in the elevator door, Max knew one thing with absolute certainty. Guardian angels don't take time off, and they never abandon their partners. The doors closed behind them, and the muffled sound of a human scream echoed through the elevator shaft. Max hit his target. The imposter thrashed under his firm jaws, desperately trying to break free, but Max wouldn't let go until his mission was accomplished. Downstairs, hospital security guards heard the commotion over the radio and rushed to intercept the elevator. When the doors finally opened, they saw a man lying on the ground, holding his bleeding arm, while Max stood over him, growling low, ready to strike again if he tried to flee. Mike arrived soon after, panting, pulling Max away with a firm command. The suspect was quickly immobilized and handcuffed by security guards and other police officers who had been called to the scene. "Jesus Christ," muttered one of the guards, noting the torn sleeve of his lab coat and the fake doctor's wide eyes. "This dog is not to be trifled with." Dr. Chen rushed back to the ICU to check on Sarah, while Mike bent down next to Max, patting him on the neck. "Good job, kid. You saved Sarah." But Max still didn't relax. His eyes followed the handcuffed man's every move, his breath panting, his muscles still tense. He knew that it was not over. The smell was still there. Sarah was in danger, and Max would never abandon his post. The handcuffed imposter struggled against the security guards, but his gaze was not focused on them. He looked at Max, as if he had finally understood that the dog had unraveled his disguise before any human. "Who are you?" Mike asked, approaching the surrendered man. "And what were you trying to do with Sarah?" The fake doctor did not answer. Sweat dripped down his forehead as he clenched his jaw, glancing at the corridors, as if calculating an escape route. But there was nowhere to run. The security guards began to rummage through his pockets. Soon, one of the agents removed an identification badge. Everyone looked at each other when they read the name printed on it. James Wilson, a nurse's aide, read the hospital's head of security, from another hospital. He shouldn't even be here. Heavy silence took over the corridor. The man was not a doctor, he was an imposter. And if Max hadn't smelled it, no one would have noticed it until it was too late. Dr. Chen appeared at the door of the ICU, panting. "Sarah is stable, but I checked the medical record. He changed her medication." Mike felt his blood run cold. "Changed how?" The doctor looked at the imposter, then back to Mike. "He increased the doses of sedatives. If it had continued like this for a few more hours, Sarah would have fallen into a deep coma." The imposter let out a low laugh. His gaze showed no fear, but something more dangerous, arrogance. "She would have died," added Dr. Chen, her voice strained with indignation. Mike gritted his teeth and sawed off his fists. He wanted to punch that bastard, but he took a deep breath. Max, at his side, still kept his gaze fixed on the prisoner, his muscles ready to react at the slightest suspicious movement. The tension was broken by the security guard's radio. "We have a problem." A deep voice echoed on the other end of the line. "The security system has been compromised. It looks like someone tried to erase this man's hospital entry records." "This is not an isolated attack," Mike muttered. "They have people out there trying to cover it up." Dr. Chen frowned. "Who are they?" Mike looked at the imposter. "Good question. James Wilson. If that was his real name." He remained silent, but a sarcastic smile played at the corner of his lips. It was then that Max began to sniff the air more intensely. He stepped forward, sniffing Wilson, then stopped and turned his head toward the hallway. "Max." Mike Franziu each. He knew this behavior. Max was smelling a smell that didn't belong there. Suddenly, the dog turned sharply to the left and growled. Mike's heart raced. "Someone else has come into the hospital," he said, "and Max is smelling them now." Dr. Chen swallowed. "If they tried to delete the records, maybe they're here to finish the job." The security guards regrouped, pulling out weapons. One of them picked up the radio. "We need reinforcements in the ICU now." Max moved quickly down the hallway, with Mike close behind. The dog stopped at the corner, his ears alert. He took a deep breath once more and then lowered himself slightly, assuming the attack stance. "They're close," Mike whispered. The tension grew by the second. The silence in the hallway was almost absolute, except for the distant sound of heart monitors coming from the ICU rooms. That's when Max barked and advanced. The door to one of the offices opened abruptly and a man dressed as a nurse ran out. But he did not carry a clipboard or medicine bottles. In his hand was a syringe. The security guards reacted quickly, but Max was faster. The Belgian shepherd jumped out, knocking the man down before he could reach Sarah. The impact sent the syringe flying out of his hand and sliding across the floor. "What the hell?" One of the guards started to speak, but Mike already knew. Another murderer. The fake nurse struggled to get up, but Max wouldn't let him. He bit the sleeve of his uniform, pulling the man to the ground once more. "Drop the gun," one of the security guards ordered, pointing at the suspect. The man hesitated for a second. Then he raised his hands. "We got him," the security guard warned over the radio. "The second suspect is surrendered." Mike knelt down and picked up the syringe from the ground. The clear liquid shone under the cold light of the hospital. "Poison?" Dr. Chen asked, her face pale. "We'll find out," Mike replied, "but I doubt it was anything to help Sarah." The suspect was handcuffed and taken away by the police who had arrived as reinforcement. The original imposter, James Wilson, just watched, his expression closed. He didn't seem surprised. "This is bigger than we thought," Dr. Chen said quietly. Mike agreed. "Much bigger." He looked at Max, who was still positioned in front of Sarah's room, his breath panting, but his eyes attentive. "If it wasn't for him, Sarah would be dead," Dr. Chen said. Mike knelt down and ran his hand around Max's neck. "I know. But the question now is, who else is involved in this?" On the other side of the ICU window, Sarah remained unconscious, oblivious to what was happening around her. But Max knew. He felt it. And if there was one thing his instinct told him clearly, it was this: the threat was not over yet. The silence in the ICU was oppressive. The tension that hung in the air was almost palpable. The two imposters were in custody, but Mike knew that wasn't the end. Max was still restless, pacing back and forth in front of Sarah's room, his ears always alert for any unusual sound. "He knows it's not over yet," Dr. Chen said, noting Max. Mike nodded. "He always knows." The syringe seized from the second suspect had already been sent for analysis, and police were now working to trace any links between the two captured men. But there were too many unanswered questions. Who sent them? How did they know where Sarah was? And most importantly, how many more were involved? On the other side of the glass, Sarah remained motionless, breathing slowly. His pale face contrasted with the steady heartbeat recorded on the monitor screen. Max sat down next to the bed, resting his nose on the floor. He never strayed from her. "We have to find out what she found at the airport," Dr. Chen said, crossing her arms. "If they were willing to kill her inside a hospital, it means she knows something really dangerous." Mike agreed. "And the only person who can tell us what it is." They looked at Sarah, the injured policewoman, the woman who had followed her dog's instinct and discovered something big enough to put a target on her back. The only one that could connect the dots. But she wasn't awake yet. The sun had already set when Mike received the call from his boss, Captain Briggs. "Rodriguez, I need you at the center now," Briggs said. "We have news about the suspects." Mike hesitated. He didn't want to leave Sarah alone, but Max would still be there. And if there was new information, he needed to know. He bent down next to Max, running his hand over his head. "Keep her, boy. I'll be back soon." Max just looked up, as if he understood. Mike left. heading towards the car parked at the entrance of the hospital. At the plant, the atmosphere was tense. Detective David Lancaster, an expert in organized crime, was sitting at the interrogation table with one of the suspects, James Wilson. "He hasn't said a word since we brought him here," Lancaster told Mike. Mike crossed his arms. "But you're having fun with it, aren't you?" Wilson had a discreet smile on his face, looking at Mike with an odd interest. "You have no idea what's going on, do you?" Wilson said finally, breaking the silence. "Why don't you tell me?" Wilson tilted his head thoughtfully. "If I tell you, you die. And, believe me, I'd rather you live to see how it ends." Mike felt a chill run down his spine. "Who else is involved?" Wilson laughed. "You're asking the wrong questions. What you should be asking is how many people on your own team have already been bought." Mike's stomach turned. "You think you're heroes, but you didn't realize that this has been happening for years. Sarah just got into the truth before its time." Mike leaned forward, clenching his fists. "If you think we're going to stop, you're very wrong." And Wilson smiled. "We'll see." At the hospital, Max was still attentive. He felt something different, a smell. His muscles contracted when he noticed a slight movement in the hallway. Someone was there. Max growled low, the hairs on his neck standing on end. Outside, a man with a clipboard was walking slowly toward Sarah's room. He was dressed as part of the medical staff, but Max sensed something was wrong. The man approached the door, looked around, and put his hand in his pocket. That's when Max moved forward. The warning bark echoed through the hallway, startling nurses and doctors. The man stopped abruptly and his eyes widened. Max stood between him and Sarah, and he wouldn't let anyone pass. Security guards quickly appeared. "What's going on here?" The fake doctor raised his hands, trying to appear harmless. I was just checking on the patient." Dr. Chen appeared next to the security guards, looking at Max and then at the man. "I've never seen you before." The imposter opened his mouth to speak, but then turned on his heel and ran. Max shot after him. The corridor became a scene of persecution, with nurses and patients swerving as the man tried to escape. But he never had a chance. Max jumped out, knocking him to the ground before he could turn the corner. The impact caused the imposter to drop a small syringe from his pocket. When security guards arrived and handcuffed the man, Dr. Chen grabbed the syringe and looked at the liquid inside. "More poison?" she whispered. Max stood over the suspect, his teeth bared. "If it weren't for him," one of the security guards began, but stopped. Max had saved Sarah once again. Half an hour later, Mike returned to the hospital and the first thing he saw was the security guards escorting the other imposter out of the building. "You missed the action," Dr. Chen said, crossing her arms. Mike looked at Max, who was still sitting in Sarah's bedroom doorway, proud but vigilant. "Good boy," Mike said, bending down to pat him. "This confirms everything," Dr. Chen continued. "They are desperate. They would risk a third attack in the same place. They want Sarah dead at any cost." Mike looked at Sarah, who was still unconscious. "And they won't stop," he muttered. Dr. Chen sighed. "So we need to bring her back. We need answers." Mike looked at Max. "And we know who can help." Max rested his snout on Sarah's hand, his gaze full of determination. She needed to wake up, because the war was far from over. The darkness of the night enveloped the hospital, but Max did not relax. He kept his head resting on Sarah's bed, listening to every sound around him. Since the last attack, the security guards had doubled the protection around her room, but Max knew that the enemies were still around. He didn't trust walls or locks, only his own nose. Mike was at his bedside, watching Sarah in silence. The heart monitor flashed at a steady pace, but she still hadn't woken up. "Come on, mate," he muttered, "we need you." Max raised his head, his amber eyes analyzing Sarah's face. He felt that she was struggling to get back. Dr. Chen entered the room, holding a clipboard. "The blood tests have come in," she said. "You're not going to like what we find." Mike turned to her, tense. The sedatives in her blood were altered. It was not an accidental overdose. It was a cocktail designed to keep her unconscious without killing her. Max growled low, feeling the tension in the air. Mike ran his hand over his face. "So they don't just want to kill her, they want time." "Time for what?" Dr. Chen shook her head. "Maybe to find out what she knows. Maybe to make sure she doesn't talk. But what matters is that they tried it 3 times. They will not stop." Max sniffed the air and looked at the door. Someone was coming. Mike noticed the dog's reaction and holstered his hand. Seconds later, Captain Briggs came in. "Rodriguez," he said, his voice serious, "I need to talk to you now." In the hallway, Briggs looked both ways before crossing his arms. "I just left the center," he began, "and what we found out is not good." Mike narrowed his eyes. "How much worse can it be?" Briggs sighed. "The 2 suspects arrested have no confirmed identity. The names they gave are false. But their contacts. Speak up, Captain." Briggs looked directly at Mike. "These men have direct links to a private security company. Former military personnel. Mercenaries." Mike felt a chill down his spine. "What does that mean?" Briggs lowered his voice. "It means that this is not just about drugs or a smuggling scheme. These guys work for someone great. And the fact that they are willing to kill a policewoman inside a hospital means that they are protecting something very valuable." Silence hung between them. Sarah knew what it was, Mike finally said. "Yes," Briggs agreed, "and that's why they tried to silence her." Mike took a deep breath. "What now?" "Now we need more evidence. It is not enough to know that there is something wrong. We need something concrete." Mike looked at the bedroom door. "Sarah can tell us what we need." Briggs nodded. "So hope she wakes up before they try again." Inside the room, Max remained next to Sarah. He observed every detail, every movement. That's when it happened. Her fingers moved. Max immediately straightened up, his eyes attentive. Sarah's hand trembled slightly, her fingers moving slowly. Then came a faint sigh. Max emitted a small yelp, as if encouraging his partner to continue. Dr. Chen, who was checking the scans, widened her eyes. "Sarah." She quickly approached. "Can you hear me?" Sarah's eyes opened slightly. Max immediately put his muzzle on her hand, and with effort, Sarah lightly squeezed the dog's fur. Dr. Chen smiled. "That's right, come back to us." Mike entered the room and froze. Sarah woke up. "My God!" He approached. "Sarah." She blinked slowly, her dry lips parting a little. "Max." Her voice was weak, barely audible. Max gently licked her hand, her ass finally wagging for the first time in days. "You're safe now," Mike assured. "But we need you to tell us what you found at the airport." Sarah took a deep breath, trying to organize her thoughts. His eyes were heavy, but there was urgency in his expression. "It was bigger than we thought." His voice cracked. "Calm down," Dr. Chen said, "no rush." But Sarah shook her head. "No. You need to know before they come back." Mike leaned forward. "Who, Sarah? Who is behind this?" She swallowed, her grim gaze. "The police," she whispered. Silence fell over the room. Mike frowned. "What do you mean?" Sarah closed her eyes for a moment, gathering her strength. The operation was not just trafficking. They were transporting something else, something biological. Dr. Chen turned pale. "They needed safe routes," Sarah continued, "and they got that through corrupt police and security agents." Mike felt his stomach turn. "You mean that within our own strength?" Sarah nodded slightly. "Yes. And I saw who's behind it. Mike's heart raced. Who? Sarah. Sarah tried to speak, but a noise interrupted the moment. A muffled explosion. The lights flickered, and the entire hospital shook. The emergency alarm went off, and the receptionist's voice echoed through the loudspeakers. Immediate evacuation. I repeat, immediate evacuation. Dr. Chen widened her eyes. This can't be a coincidence. Max was already in a position of alert. Mike drew his gun. They came to finish the job. Sarah tried to move, but moaned in pain. Don't worry, Mike said, holding his hand, we'll protect you. He looked at Max, and the dog nodded, as if he understood. Let's get this over with, Mike muttered. Max growled. The war had begun. Emergency sirens wailed throughout the hospital as security personnel tried to make sense of what was happening. The smell of smoke began to spread, and the emergency lights cast a reddish glow over the corridors. Max was in an attack position, his muscles tense, ready to act. He knew that this was not a simple incident. Danger was near. Mike held his gun tightly. We need to get Sarah out of here now. Dr. Chen was already at her bedside, checking Sarah's vital signs. She's still weak, but she can move with help. And Sarah tried to sit up, moaning in pain. Her body had not yet fully recovered, but her determined gaze showed that she did not want to be left behind. With no time to hesitate, Mike said, looking at Max, let's get out of here. Stay close, boy. Max growled in response and took the lead. The corridor was in chaos. Nurses and doctors rushed back and forth, evacuating patients as the alarms continued to ring. Mike held Sarah with one arm as Dr. Chen led the way. Max sniffed the air at every turn, looking for any hidden threat. As they approached the elevator, Max stopped abruptly. His body became rigid, and he emitted a low growl. There's someone there, he muttered. Dr. Chen frowned. How do you know? Mike pointed to Max. He never misses. They heard heavy footsteps echoing down the hallway. Then, 3 men appeared, all wearing dark clothing and holding guns. Murder. Mike Susaru. The men were there for them. They were there to kill Sarah. Run. Mike yelled, pulling Sarah in the opposite direction. Max barked furiously and leapt forward, ready to attack. The shots echoed down the hallway. Mike pulled Sarah behind an emergency cart as bullets whizzed down the hallway. Dr. Chen ducked down next to them, her eyes wide with fear. Max kept low, waiting for the right moment. The men advanced slowly, surrounding them. Max waited, then jumped into the first shooter's leg. The man screamed, the gun falling to the ground. Mike took advantage of the distraction to shoot the second shooter. The bullet hit his shoulder, causing him to stumble backwards. Max spun around, dodging a kick and advancing to the third man who was trying to catch Sarah. He didn't even come close. The Belgian shepherd grabbed his leg and pulled hard, knocking him to the ground. Dr. Chen took the moment to grab the fallen weapon and pointed at the last man standing. Move and I'll shoot, she said, her voice steady. The man hesitated, then raised his hands. Max kept his growl low, but didn't walk away. He knew he couldn't trust these men. Mike held Sarah tightly. Let's go. We have to get out of here before more of them show up. Dr. Chen picked up one of the mercenaries' radios. Hospital security should already be on the way, she said, but we need to get out before their men get there first. Mike looked at Max. Take the lead, kid. Max didn't hesitate. He took the lead, running ahead of them, checking every corner of the hospital. They needed to get out alive. When they arrived at the hospital garage, everything was too quiet. That doesn't feel right, Mike muttered. Max was tense, his eyes scanning every corner of the underground parking lot. It was then that Sarah whispered, "It's an ambush." As soon as she spoke, the headlights of 2 black SUVs came on. Several men got out of the vehicles, all armed. Mike felt his heart race. They were surrounded. Max growled, placing himself in front of Sarah. One of the men stepped forward, his face hard, expressionless. "Hand over the police," he said, "and no one else gets hurt." Mike clenched his jaw. "Do you really think we're going to?" The man sighed. "You have no choice." Max growled louder. Dr. Chen held Sarah's arm. "We need a plan." Sarah took a deep breath. "I have one." She looked at Max and gave a silent command. The dog understood immediately. In an instant, Max darted to the side, diverting the attention of the armed men. It was the perfect distraction. Mike grabbed his gun and opened fire. Dr. Chen pulled Sarah behind one of the cars, protecting her as the bullets flew through the parking lot. Max ran in a zigzag, dodging shots as he advanced towards the leader of the mercenaries. The man tried to react, but Max was already on top of him. The dog's jaws closed on the mercenary's forearm, and the man's scream echoed through space. The confusion allowed Mike to take down two more attackers. Dr. Chen found the key to one of the abandoned cars and started the engine. "Come in," she shouted. Mike grabbed Sarah and put her in the back seat. Max let go of the enemy's arm and ran to the car at the last second. The engine roared, and they shot out of the garage, leaving the mercenaries behind. Mike looked in the rearview mirror and saw the men getting into the SUVs to chase them. "It's not over yet," he said, accelerating. Sarah, still weak, took a deep breath. "I know," she replied, "but now we have a chance." Max sat between them, his eyes still focused on the road. He knew danger was still near, but as long as he was with Sarah, he would protect his partner until the end. The hunt was just beginning. The car's engine roared as Mike sped through the streets of Atlanta, the headlights of the black SUVs shining in the rearview mirror. The mercenaries would not give up so easily. "Hold on," Mike warned, turning the steering wheel to dodge a truck crossing the intersection. Dr. Chen held Sarah in the back seat, trying to protect her from the bumps. Max was crouched on the floor of the car, but his eyes were fixed on the road ahead. He knew that the persecution would not end there. The SUVs were approaching quickly. "If we have to fight, we're at a disadvantage," Mike growled. "They have heavy weapons." "So we need a plan," Sarah said with difficulty, still weak but determined. Dr. Chen looked at Mike. "The police have already been alerted. Briggs is trying, but if Sarah is right about corrupt cops, maybe help won't come as fast as we want." Sarah gritted her teeth. "We need to take this information to someone we trust." Mike thought fast. "There is an industrial warehouse in the North Zone. We can hide there for a while." Max raised his head. He knew something big was about to happen. The abandoned warehouse was in a dark alley, away from the busy streets. Mike braked sharply and got out of the car, helping Sarah down. Max was the first to enter, sniffing every corner of the shed. There was no one else there. Dr. Chen helped Sarah sit on a crate while Mike wielded the gun, watching the entrance. "How long until they find us?" Sarah asked. "Not much," Mike replied, "but we can make it work for us." Max was restless. He felt that danger was near. Sarah looked at him and ran her hand through his fur. "We need you more than ever, boy." Max licked his hand in response. Black SUVs have finally arrived. The doors opened, and the mercenaries descended, guns drawn. "We know you're here," one of them shouted. "Make it easy." Mike looked at Sarah. "Easy is not our style." Sarah nodded. "And they don't know what awaits them." Max was already prepared. His body was tense, ready to attack. Mike made a quick hand signal. "Go, boy." Max darted through the shed, moving like a shadow. The first mercenary entered cautiously. Max charged sideways, knocking him down before he could react. The second man tried to aim, but Mike was already shooting. The shots echoed through the warehouse. Sarah and Dr. Chen took cover behind a crate while Max ran, avoiding the shots. A third mercenary tried to catch Sarah. Max growled and jumped on him. The man screamed as the Belgian shepherd's teeth dug into his arm. Sarah took advantage of the distraction and picked up the fallen gun. Without hesitation, he fired. The mercenary fell to the ground. The sound of sirens has finally arrived. Police cars surrounded the shed, but Mike didn't relax. He needed to know one thing before he let his guard down. And then a black car pulled up at the entrance. Captain Briggs got out of the vehicle. Mike held his gun high. "Say you're on our side, Captain." Briggs raised his hands. "I am. And I brought clean reinforcements." The cops arrested the remaining mercenaries while Dr. Chen checked on Sarah. Mike sighed, exhausted. Max was still by Sarah's side, protecting her. Sarah looked at him and smiled. "You saved my life once again, boy." Max wagged his tail, but didn't move away from her. In the following weeks, the investigations revealed the truth. The drug trafficking operation was just the tip of the iceberg. The gang was using transport routes to smuggle biological weapons out of the country. And inside the police, some officers were covering it all up. With Sarah's information and the evidence gathered, those responsible were arrested, but there was still a lot of work to do. Sarah was honored for her courage, and Max received the highest honor from the K9 unit. During the ceremony, Mike looked at Max and smiled. "I think you deserve a nice steak after all this." Max barked, as if he agreed. Sarah ran her hand through his fur. "You're more than a police dog, Max. You're my partner, my guardian angel." The sun set over Atlanta, and Max finally relaxed. But deep down, he knew he would always be ready for the next mission, because protecting Sarah wasn't just his duty, it was his promise. If this story touched your heart, just imagine how many more we still have to share. Subscribe to Whisker Tales, hit the bell icon, and join us for every new episode of courage, loyalty, and second chances. Because every life deserves to be remembered.